Will Rachel Reeves' budget be the key to saving Britain's economy, or will it be another recipe for disaster? In this video, Trevor Phillips from Sky News sit down with former Bank of England Governor Lord Mervyn King to unpack Reeves' budget strategy. We also explore stewardship and foresight, the critical leadership principles every government leader must master. Before we get into the details, if you love diving into political issues and enjoy hearing a principled take on them, then hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to join the conversation. It will help our channel reach a wider audience.
Inflation is almost twice what it should be, and we're spending £100 billion a year and more just on debt interest. So what's gone wrong, and what should she do? Well, let's ask the former Bank of England Governor, Lord King, whom I've already said good morning. Look, just how much economic trouble is the country in?
Well, it's not a disaster, but it is a serious problem, and it's been the same for a long while, which is we all want to invest more. We can all come up with good ideas, but we can't invest more without saving more to finance that. We're already borrowing a lot from abroad. So as a country, we need to save more as a share of our national income. And what that means is that we have to consume less. Now, there are two ways of doing that. One is to encourage households, families to save more through savings and contributing to pension schemes. So the last thing you want to do is to tax or discriminate against those form of savings. But the most immediate way in which you can ensure that the country's saving as a whole goes up is to reduce the government's budget deficit. And that is the big challenge.
Just to get that clear, so one of the first messages you would like to send to the Chancellor is leave the ISAs alone.
Well, there are technical issues about whether you want to give the same tax incentives to just cash investments or equity investments. Leave that to one side. The principle has to be to encourage savings. But I think the one piece of advice I would give is she should start the budget with a very clear and honest statement about the state of the nation, state of the economy. Don't blame people for what's happened in the past. It may get cheers on the floor of the House of Commons, but what people want to hear is what is the actual state of the nation. And then not to pretend that there is one set of measures you can announce and within a few weeks or months it all comes right. It doesn't. It takes a long time. Any measure to improve the economic performance of this country would take years before it really comes through. I don't think we should be pessimistic about it, because since the financial crisis, every advanced country in the world has seen a slowing of productivity growth, not just here, in every country. And now I think it's beginning to come back. So I think the medium to long-term outlook for growth is actually quite optimistic. But it won't happen next year or the next 2 years. And that is a challenge. But the fundamental problem is that just coming up with gimmicks or tinkering with the tax system, the OBR comes up with one number, which tells you by how much you have to raise taxes or cut spending. The only way to describe that is madness. This is based on an assessment of whether the ratio of our national debt to national income is going to be falling 4 years from now. Well, we have no idea. The idea that, if only you do 8.3 billion this year, that's it, is nonsense. It has to be something set in looking at a strategy for the Parliament as a whole. You can't determine public spending sensibly by having a change every 6 months when the OBR reports saying you better cut spending or raise taxes by this one number.
The Chancellor has been rather more forthcoming about what's in her mind than chancellors usually are. In the old days, chancellors used to go away into a darkened room for however long, 6 months before a budget, and you couldn't get them interviewed, you couldn't talk to them and so on. This chancellor's been talking a lot. So you will have heard some sense of what she has been saying. Can you discern a plan?
No, I can't. And that's what worries me. And this is true across a wide range of government policies. There's plenty of scope for reforming the tax system. We haven't seen a chancellor take a strategic look at the tax system for almost 40 years. It's been one kind of tinkering after another, and that's created a mess and excessively complex. So, take property taxation. So we read in the papers this morning that maybe there'll be a wealth tax on high-value properties. But
the so-called mansion tax.
yeah, but property taxes are an interaction between stamp duty, council tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax. You don't solve that problem by just adding another wealth tax to it. So what it needs, and what I would advise her to do, is to set up a group of people who in 12 months look deeply at all aspects of the tax treatment, not just on property, but all kinds of other sorts of savings and wealth, to come up with a coherent view as to what it should look like. And that doesn't seem to happen. What happens is the OBR produces just before the budget one number, and then they look round for, what ideas almost written on the back of a fact packet about how you can raise an extra few billion here or a few billion there. That is not coherent tax strategy. And you could do a great deal by thinking it through first.
Well, you can't see an overall strategy, but just here and now, is she going to have to raise taxes? There's some signs that actually the tax revenues that she expected haven't actually been coming through.
Well, I think she probably will find a way of trying to raise tax revenues, though I have no means of knowing what she wants to do or not. But it doesn't make sense to think of that in terms of, here's one number I've got to raise this year, and then my problems are over. It needs to be seen in the context of the entire Parliament. And that is one of the problems that we've had for several years now. This rolling 4-year horizon allows governments to say, well, towards the end of that period, we're going to cut government spending a lot. So the OBR are then forced to say the plans seem to fit the fiscal rules, but the government doesn't spell out what kinds of cuts in spending are implied by that. So you have to have a coherent plan for both taxes and spending. And it's not something that you can just do in a month or two. It has to be something based on a coherent plan. Social care, for example, is a big issue in terms of not just care, but also the financing of it. That's been postponed and pushed down towards the end of this Parliament. Same issue about financing, the health service. There are a whole series of areas of policy where a serious plan for how you want to reform how the public sector works is needed.
I guess, of course, she might say, yeah, it's great that we might have a plan, but we are faced with current pressures. And one of those, of course, is inflation. We have higher inflation than, I think, any large economy. Do you think that the Chancellor bears any responsibility for that level of inflation, or is this, as she would always put it, inherited?
Well, I don't think it's a question. I think central banks around the world allowed inflation to rise, in this case, to over 11% in this country. That's now been tackled. And I think that problem is not a serious one at present.
But for ours, we're what, 3.8% price target?
But I think the bank will try and bring it down to 2%, and I see no reason why they can't do that. Depends on their willingness to be tough and do that. But I think they can achieve that. So I don't think that's the biggest issue facing us or the government. The big issue facing us is how on earth we're going to save more as a country to finance investment. And that means, I think, changing the balance between taxes and spending.
Should Britain prioritize its own economy before tackling global challenges? The path to a stronger economy requires tough choices. Slashing wasteful spending and crafting policies that attract investments. Yet the government keeps repeating the same mistakes, ignoring this reality and wondering why decades of economic struggles persists. True foresight in leadership would have prevented many of these issues by anticipating challenges and planning strategically. Leaders must face facts. Borrowing billions to fund foreign aid, while Britain's economy is struggling to keep its head above water, is unsustainable. Prioritizing housing for illegal migrants in hotels over British citizens drains resources. Ignoring Britain's own oil and gas reserves while buying energy from countries like China squanders wealth. If leaders fail to put British citizens first, if they keep spending on foreign aid over domestic needs, if they neglect national resources, the economy will only deteriorate further. Dr. Miles Monroe, a leadership consultant to governments, tied stewardship to management with a powerful truth. Whatever you don't manage, you lose. This means mismanaging the economy leads to lost wealth. Failing to secure borders undermines national security and raises costs to protect citizens. Neglecting national resources like oil and gas misses opportunities for jobs and growth. Hindering job creation alienates voters and weakens public support. Stewardship in government leadership is about responsibility, preventing the loss of resources, public welfare, security, or trust. Foresight complements this by guiding leaders to plan for a stable future, not just react to crises. Britain needs leaders who don't just theorize and talk about management, but apply proven principles of stewardship and foresight. They must enact policies that align with sound management practices and execute them effectively. It's time to stop reckless spending and piling on debt. Leaders must create a clear plan to cut borrowing and build a thriving economy. What policies do you think our government should prioritize to protect our resources and plan for prosperity? Let us know in the comments, because Britain deserves to stop losing and start winning again. If you have benefited in any way from this video, please subscribe, like, share, and be sure to leave us a comment.